Hello and welcome to Video Game Hangover. I'm Randy Dickinson and I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Hello, I am DJ Ross. I am in Mountain View, California.
Each week here on Video Game Hangover, we talk about the games that have been keeping us up at night. This week, we're playing Panzer Paladin, Far Cry 6, and Neversong.
Ooh.
Plus, hey, we'll do something that we don't do very often. We will open up the viewer mailbag.
Ooh. Did we get some angry Star Wars emails?
I don't know. You'll have to wait and see what happens when we open up the viewer mailbag.
Oh man, I hope it's angry Star Wars fans.
Yep.
Or do I want that? I don't know.
Do you want to debate the merits of various Star Wars movies on the podcast this week?
No. Well,
no,
I mean,
do I.
Depends who wins. I mean, I would love to get your take on any of the recent Star Wars movies, but I feel like that would be a short discussion.
It would be very brief.
Okay.
I don't know that I could even name them.
Well, okay. You have some homework to do. We can circle back on this next week.
The Last Starfighter. No, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
The Last Lightsaber.
Should we get some emails about The Last Starfighter? That would be amazing.
That would be amazing. That was, I loved that movie as a kid, man. That was a great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was my childhood fantasy of being good at a video game.
just in general. Or just being so good that you get recruited to be in the video game.
There you go. Yes. Yeah, I didn't finish my thought there, but yes. Being so good that aliens come and take me to defend their dying planet or whatever the rest of the plot of that movie was. But
what video game were you hoping that would be? Would it be whatever he was playing in The Last Starfighter?
No. It was like a shmup, if I remember correctly, right? Is that...
it's like Asteroids or Space Invaders or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I was... My thing at that time was probably Q*bert. I was very good at Q*bert.
Oh, yeah?
I don't know if there's any sort of like anything that sort of happens in a game of Q*bert that aliens would find beneficial to their society, though.
What is going on in Q*bert? Like, what is the plot of that game? What is he doing? He's just jumping on stairs.
Jumping on stairs and then occasionally bopping, snakes and things like that.
That's a real weird thing to like have a planetary conflict over, because I imagine it's like, we want the stairs to be this color. They want it to be this other color. And now we're at war with each other.
Yeah. Well, that's when video games took off in the 80s and all of these, these creatives were charged with somehow turning them into Saturday morning cartoons and giving them plot and character when clearly none of that was on display in the actual content they were sort of pulling from. So, yeah.
Simpler times.
Indeed.
Wait, was there a Q*bert show?
I believe there was a Q*bert television show. I have vague memories of that, yeah.
Miss out on that one. Now I'm curious.
Do you want to get to the viewer mail? Do you want to start with that? This is not a thing that
let's save it for the end. Let's let those Star Wars fans stew for a little bit.
Okay, cool. Yeah, playing some video games this week.
Oh.
Yeah. What a treat, huh?
Yeah. What a treat. Love them.
Yep.
That's it. Okay, time for viewer mail.
Yeah, dramatic pause. So I started playing Far Cry 6.
Oh.
Why, you might ask?
Well, you love Far Cry. Why wouldn't you play Far Cry 6?
I love Far Cry, yeah. That's not true. No, let's just be clear on that, is that I've attempted in the past to play Far Cry games, and I don't see the appeal.
I was under the impression that you enjoyed at least Far Cry 3. That's the one everybody likes. Right? You don't like that one?
I don't know.
You don't know? Didn't you play it?
I skipped some of them. because there's a splash screen that comes up in Far Cry 6 where you can sort of play missions that include characters from like the previous 3 or 4 Far Cry games, and I don't know who any of the characters are.
Okay,
except that
come back to that.
One of them is Michael Mando, who plays Nacho on Better Call Saul.
Yeah, he was in Far Cry 3.
Okay, so every time he shows up, I'm like, hey, there's Nacho.
Yeah.
No, mostly I don't know any of those games. I don't think I played the one with him in it either. So I've vague memories of being on an island. It was like an Island of Dr. Moreau thing, maybe Far Cry 1 or 2, or what were the subtitles then?
Yeah.
Far Cry Instincts or something like that.
Yeah, there was that spin-off where you like turned into an animal or something.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was supposed to be good.
Well, good, because it wasn't. So, yeah.
That's so weird. I thought you were a huge Far Cry 3 fan. What about the one with Michael Biehn in it? Was that Michael Biehn, the Blood Dragon one?
Oh, that was the one that was like sort of the 80s kind of neon drenched. Yeah. That was fun. I played that. Yeah, that was a good time.
Okay, see, there you go. Far Cry.
That was like a side thing too, right? Yeah, Far Cry fan. There you go. Through and through. No, a lot of these, it's just sort of like laying in the mud, and you have to kill 6 bears to make a wallet. And I just don't understand.
Okay. Now it's coming back to me. Yeah, you didn't like all the animal, the making of the wallets and all that.
There's a lot of animal murder in these games. But it's a lot of sort of the things that I, in general, am sort of critical of Assassin's Creed games about is it's just sort of lather, rinse, repeat. That you go to a place and climb to the highest part, and then you can see all the targets, and then you go down and you hide in some bushes, and then you sneak out and you kill a guy, and then you got to turn off the alarm, and then there's a captain. You've got to find the captain and then kill him, and you get extra points if you do that. And Far Cry 6 is exactly that over and over and over.
Just still doing that. Far Cry 3 felt like Assassin's Creed was already pretty big at the time, but I feel like it hadn't quite propagated into every video game or like every Ubisoft game in particular until they had the like Far Cry revival with Far Cry 3, and then they're just like, oh, we can do this with every game. Just throw a million icons onto the minimap.
Yes. Yeah. And I find that even in kind of the early hours of Far Cry, and in my sort of, not defense, but in my, just to sort of paint the picture of my perspective here, I've played probably 6 hours of Far Cry 6. Okay. It's not really, it doesn't really even suffer from like the map bloat thing that I think it's so easy to sort of criticize the Ubisoft games for. And that's the thing that sort of turned me off from playing Horizon any further, is just at some point the whole thing opens up and it's just dots on a map. And I'm like, I'm not running around doing all this crap. You guys need to have a point, have a plot, have a through line, and then call me back. And Far Cry 6 is pretty focused. There's certainly a lot of things that you can kind of go off the path to sort of do and play around with. And in the best ways, it feels like a Just Cause game because of that. It's there. And this is what sort of lured me to it, is that I remember a lot of the trailers for Far Cry 6. There was a lot of just kind of over the top, kind of bombastic. They call them Supremos in the game. These sort of ridiculous weapons. So there's one that's like one of the first ones you get is a backpack mounted rocket launcher that basically launches mortars off of your back. And it has a flamethrower attached to it naturally. And it has a cooldown, of course. You can't just march into an encampment and wipe everybody out with the thing, but the cooldown's not very long. So it really is just an excuse for like just wanton destruction.
Yeah, like how long does it take you to travel from one encampment to the next one? Like it's probably ready by the time you get there.
Yeah. I mean, multiple times in the same encampment, in fact.
Even better.
Yeah. So, and in fact, the game incentivizes you to sort of do kind of rapid kills and rapid takedowns, because that will recharge your Supremo even faster. So yeah, when you sort of like run out of juice for your giant backpack flamethrower arm cannon thing, you pull out whatever close gun or axe or whatever you have nearby, a machete. That's what you get in Far Cry 6, and just start wiping out poor guards. And and then quickly that thing recharges, and then you're back in business with it.
Yeah.
So the hook here is that you're a revolutionary in sort of a Cuba-like government, And it is run by a nihilistic dictator who, to keep the Better Call Saul Breaking Bad connections going, is Giancarlo Esposito, a.k.a. Gus Fring from those things. And he's, a particularly menacing villain, which is not a surprise to anybody who's ever seen a single episode of Better Call Saul.
Right. I was going to say, he seems like he would be the most pleasant guy in real life, like off camera. But for some reason, whenever he's on screen, he's just like, ugh,
terrifying.
This is the worst. Yeah, he's scary.
Absolutely. And he's super scary in this, and just, chews up scenery, has a great entrance scene in the beginning of the game where, everyone's terrified and whimpering in fear as he paces and gives a speech about how they're all going to die, and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, oh, this feels like, classic, any villain setup from a TV show or movie ever. So, the right guy for the right job at the right time. So you are trying to sort of disrupt his island paradise, which he rules over with an iron fist. So you link up with a bunch of revolutionaries and run around causing chaos. So in that, it sort of feels a little bit like Just Cause, which is fun. I like those Just Cause games, despite not being, great works of art by any stretch, or, even good at character development or voice acting or anything like that.
They get the job done.
Fun. Yeah, it's a sandbox, right? You just go around, blow shit up. That part of Far Cry 6 is fun. But the parts of it that are not are the same shit I said before. It's just lying in the mud waiting for a guard to pass. If you want to upgrade your arsenal, you have to kill 16 of these things. And it just seems like random, arbitrary bullshit. One of the missions you get 4 or 5 hours into this thing is you got to go to these 3 things and find the general who is touring these facilities. And it puts the 3 icons on your map, and none of them are anywhere near me. They're
of course not.
Thousands of miles away. And there's
one's in like the swamp, one's in the volcano, and then one is on the snowy mountain.
In the hollowed out skull of no. So to quickly get to them, and naturally there's somebody on the radio going, you have to be faster, you got to go quicker. You steal the closest car you can, and of course that creates chaos, and guards start chasing you, and there's people in the road, and it's a mostly kind of underdeveloped island. So you're not quite sure what's a road and what's not. Mm-hmm. You can't get into a third-person view when you're driving. It's all first-person driving, which is horrible, which is never fun in a video game. It's a lot of me sort of like accidentally driving off the road into the river, trying to swim to the edge of the river and figure out how to get out. And then can I find another vehicle and start this bullshit trip all over again? And after, 1.5 of these 3 objectives, I'm like, I think I've seen enough Far Cry 6.
Yeah, these guys can solve their own problems.
Yeah, exactly. I am, I'm a revolutionary at heart, but not so much in practice, I guess. Not for me, just not my thing. It's beautiful. I think I can come down on the side of that. It is probably the prettiest PS5 game I've played thus far.
Wow.
You have some really just gorgeous vistas and beautiful scenery, and all the little cinematics and stuff like that are really well done. But we're 10 years into that being the case for every video game, of course, at this point. Yeah. But yeah, it's very pretty. So kudos to them for that. But just this whole feedback loop of really annoying things that you have to do is just not my thing in video games anymore. I'm not going to play any more Far Cry 6. I'm done.
Oh, done already.
Yep, I'm done with Far Cry 6. 6 hours enough. I think that's sufficient.
That's I mean, better to cut your losses. Why continue playing something you're not into?
Exactly. There's so many other video games out there that I want to play, that could be good, that might be fun. I'm not going to continue grinding away at one that is not. Which is exactly what I said, actually, when I sort of got to the point where I had, gotten mauled by a jaguar for the 3rd time trying to get this mission done, was I'm gonna stop now and play a game that I think is fun.
Yeah.
Because this one is not.
I'm sure somebody has already compiled all the cutscenes with Giancarlo Esposito on YouTube, so you can just go watch those and see how he does, see what happens to him.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. I mean, the funny thing is, as I was sort of like decided I was done with this and that maybe it wasn't a great game or maybe it wasn't the right kind of game for me, I naturally went to Google and I was like, what do the reviews on this look like? I don't, do other people like this? And it's generally a pretty well-received Far Cry game. It seems like,
really?
Yeah, I don't know. Huh. Maybe they're all wrong.
Maybe they're all wrong. I don't know. Maybe it really turns around after 30 or 40 hours.
Sure, maybe it's like Death Stranding in that way, and it's it has a 20-hour introduction, and then it really kind of hits its stride.
Oh man,
yeah. But like Death Stranding, I'll never see it. So yeah, I think I'm done with Far Cry 6. If anybody would like a copy for the PS5, let me know.
Well, that's too bad.
Yeah. I tried. I really tried. More than anything, it made me want to go back and play Just Cause again. So that might be in my near future because I think that particularly Just Cause like 3 and 4, I think are just a perfect blend of ridiculous, over the top things that go boom.
What about Just Cause 2? What about that one?
That one was fine. Yeah. I don't know that I have a machine that I can run it on anymore, though.
Oh, really? Seems like somebody should be working on that. That's a tragedy.
Yeah. I mean, Just Cause 2 is a great game. Probably the best Just Cause, right?
I think so. I mean, it was so good, I didn't play the ones that came after it.
That was all you needed right there from Just Cause.
I was just like, what's the point? If I want to play more of this game, I'll just, play more of this game because it is vast.
Right. This is true. So yeah, that's enough of Far Cry 6.
Okay, well, that's a shame.
Is it?
Well, I mean, it's a shame that it wasn't better.
True, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I didn't spend a lot of money on it. It was definitely, it was like, oh, Giancarlo Esposito, and it's $12? Let's do that. Sure, let's give that a shot. So, yeah, I don't feel, that's $2 an hour. That's not bad. That's fine.
At some point, I would really like to go back and play Far Cry 2. Because when it came out, I think it was not very well received because it was fairly different from Far Cry 1, from what I understand. But the more I read about it, or the more I just hear people talking about it, it sounds really fascinating. Because I think it was open world, but there was just all this weird stuff that could happen to you, like a lot of procedural stuff. It almost sounds like a roguelike in the kind of a way. Where you could, like, your weapons would just jam or break, or your truck would break down, or you could just get diseases because you were like out in the wilderness. And when I just say them all back to back like that, it sounds terrible. Like you're just being afflicted with all these horrible things. But on some level, it sounds really interesting because there are just all these weird interactions that could happen. Like, I don't know. It sounds so much less predictable than, say, any other first-person shooter. I think it sounds kind of cool.
Yeah, it certainly sounds a little more ambitious than, your standard fare, I guess. Certainly probably more ambitious than whatever I just played for 6 hours.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it seems like they've got a formula for them. Like, since Far Cry 3, they've just been remaking that game. Having never played Far Cry 3, but at least that's my impression of it.
Yeah. So the hook here is that this is Crytek. It was once upon a time Crytek, right? That this is meant to be one of those kind of show-offy video games like Crysis that they used to make.
Well, I mean, I think they only did Far Cry 1. I don't know if... I think they just split immediately after that and moved over to Crysis.
Oh, gotcha.
But, I mean, they've always been... I think they've maintained some of that spirit from the first Far Cry, perhaps. But I don't think it's anything that was sort of like intentionally like engine pushing or hardware pushing as Far Cry 1.
Yeah. And certainly as sort of Crysis has come to be known. Yeah. Yeah. Published by Ubisoft. Who's the developer? Crytek is on the first one. So yeah, it doesn't look like they're in the credits for any of the sequels. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think Ubisoft just kept the the title and did their own thing with it.
Just slap a new coat of paint on it every couple of years.
Yeah. I mean, the 3 seem to be very popular. I feel like it's kind of dropped off in terms of buzz since then, but I haven't really kept up with it.
What was that? 2012, it looks like, yeah. So, I tried.
Oh, well.
That's fine. Yeah.
It's fine, yeah.
Not everything is for everyone. That's fine. I'm okay. Yeah. No worries. Blood Dragon. That was the one. That was fun. I enjoyed that.
It's the one with Michael Biehn in it.
Yeah.
Was that actually him? I can't remember. Like, there was a character on the front that looked very much like it was him.
Michael Biehn provides the voice and likeness for protagonist Rex Powercolt.
Oh, good. Wait, Powercolt?
Power in quotes is his nickname, I guess. Powercolt.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying his last name was Powercolt, which was like, oh, that is a decision that someone made.
His last name is Colt. His nickname is Power.
Yeah. No, I think his name, they should have just gone with Rex Powercolt.
Rex Powercolt.
And I don't think anybody would have questioned it at that point.
No, probably not. I mean, it seems very on brand for what they were trying to achieve with Far Cry Blood Dragon. Yeah.
It'd be tough to get away with that in, say, one of the more grounded Far Cry games, but in Blood Dragon, just go for it. Anyway.
I'm looking up Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, and this will be the last I'll say about Far Cry. Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon on Wikipedia, and there's a screenshot that in the the description underneath the screenshot says, in this gameplay screenshot, protagonist Rex Powercolt is attacking the titular Blood Dragon.
Okay, so there is... Okay, yeah.
So
relieved that there is actually a blood dragon in it.
There is a blood dragon in the game. Yeah, it's not.
Well, I'll be very disappointed if you got all the way to the end and you realize, hey, where was the blood dragon?
Yeah, it was just a normal dragon. There was no blood at all.
It's very misleading.
What have you been playing, TJ? Does it have dragons in it, or do you have to kill any bears?
Oh, it does have a dragon in it.
Oh,
it has at least one dragon. I don't know if it has a bear. Maybe I just haven't reached the bear stage yet. I have been playing Panzer Paladin on the Switch, which is about as different from Far Cry 6 as you could get. It is a 2D retro platformer in the style of, feels very much, very Mega Man to me. But also, and this has me very excited, it's got a little bit of Zelda 2 in there.
Oh,
the weird Zelda that was a side-scrolling action game.
Yeah,
and I say that it's easy to make that comparison because in this game you play as a giant robot. Actually, so you play as a tiny little human pilot who climbs into a giant robot, but then the robot has a presumably enormous sword and shield that doesn't have a gun or anything. He just beats up on stuff with an enormous sword. And it's good. You have your basic sword attacks, but what really reminds me of Zelda 2 is you've got the shield, and you can use it to block projectiles, and occasionally there will be other enemies that also have a sword and shield, and you get into these little 2D sword duels with them.
Cool.
And then you have the signature Zelda 2 moves, the upward and downward sword thrusts, which are so exciting. And the robot can do both of those. So as soon as I realized that, I was like, oh, he's a huge Zelda fan. He's got all the same moves. It's great. But going through the actual levels themselves, it feels more like Mega Man because you're doing much more sort of jumping around. And I don't know, as much as I like Zelda 2, as interesting as it wasn't the greatest in terms of just the pure platforming and movement. So in that sense, this feels much better, much closer to how a Mega Man game would do just platforming and kind of traversal, I suppose. And yeah, the way that they've sort of designed all the levels and handled the enemy placement also feels very good, because it feels like, when I think about those old Mega Man games, to me, those just seem like almost the epitome of 2D sort of platformer action game design, because playing through them again after, I played through them all when I was a little kid, but then going back to them and revisiting them with a little more of a critical eye, realize like, oh, these are actually very thoughtfully assembled. Like if I was going to make a video game and I have no idea what I'm doing, I would just like draw out a level map and just drop in enemies anywhere, because that just feels like, it's a platformer. There should be enemies. It doesn't matter where they go. Mm-hmm. But in like the early Mega Man games, everything felt so sort of deliberately designed to present you with just like interesting sort of obstacles, where like this is, I don't know, this is very simplified, but there could be a room you get to and there's like a pit in the middle of it, and you obviously have to jump over the pit to get to the exit. But there's an enemy at this exact point where it's going to make it trickier to jump over that pit than it should be. Mm-hmm. So just like the whole game is like that. And I feel like in Panzer Paladin, they have also done a very good job of just designing levels that are very thoughtful and are that you kind of have to think about as you're playing. You can't just sort of steamroll your way through them. And also the boss designs are very good. They are, similar to a Mega Man game. They all have their own sort of like arsenal of attacks that you have to learn and react to. And at no point does it ever feel like unfair or like incredibly punishing, but they're just good sort of retro quality boss fights, which I appreciate.
Retro quality boss fights?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was trying to think of... So I was going to say I played Odalis, which was sort of that Castlevania-like last year.
Yeah.
But that also had good boss fights. So I don't know. For some reason, I have this memory of just games that have miserable boss fights that are trying to be sort of in that retro style. But it was like they were designed by me, who has no idea how to make a video game. So, I'm just putting enemies everywhere and, giving bosses like completely arbitrary movesets. I don't know. Mm-hmm. It's just, it's very satisfying to play in this. It's the kind of boss, it's the kind of video game boss that I really enjoy fighting.
Cool.
There's this, like a mini boss, I guess, especially there's like a horse, not a horseman. I think his name is actually Horseman, but he's like a centaur, right?
It's Rex Powercolt Horseman.
Yeah, exactly. No, wait, he's not a centaur, because I guess he's just a horse. He's like a horse that has a sword and shield. Okay, I have to think about this. Yeah. He's like he's a horse with arms. But whenever he shows up, he's so good because he's got a high attack, he's got a low attack, he's got kind of a charge move, and you just react to all these attacks using your robot moveset. It's really good. Like whenever he shows up, I'm very excited to fight him again.
So are you always in the giant robot? Are you the giant robot, or is it like a mech situation where you can get out and sort of do other stuff?
It's kind of a mech situation. There's at least one segment in each level where it feels like you have to get out of the mech and walk around on foot. And as you would expect, you're much less capable playing as the human pilot. You're much squishier, so you don't have as much health and everything, which are kind of interesting. Like I go back and forth on this because on one hand, it's interesting that the stakes are a little bit higher because you don't have the huge like health gauge that the mech does. Your moveset is slightly different. You don't have the big sword. You have a whip instead. But I feel like the on-foot sections, if there's one issue, and this also kind of carries back to the mech sections, is that it's very easy to just like die instantly because there are spikes all over the place in a lot of these sections. And if you fall on the spikes as the pilot, you just like are instantly killed and have to get reset back to a checkpoint. And I think this is my least favorite thing about the game. I was having an issue with this when I was playing it this weekend, actually, because on foot you have these fatal spikes in the mech. You have, they're just bottomless pits, classic video game thing. And if you fall into one of those, you die and have to get set back to a checkpoint. And on some level, I'm like, okay, Mega Man had those, so sure, every retro game feels like they have to include those out of obligation, but they're just, like, I'm so over it at this point. I feel like I just don't need the instant kills or the bottomless pits at the very least at this point. I don't know if it was ever fun. No, it probably wasn't ever fun. Nobody enjoys falling into a bottomless pit. I read a review, actually, that had this great quote, which described it as, it's not a difficult game, it's just frustrating, which is like, I see where they're coming from. Mm-hmm. Because getting into one of these retro-inspired platformers, I always kind of expect them to be, like, harder than the average video game that comes out, just because it's kind of taking some cues from, like, when games were much more difficult. Mm-hmm. But I'm also a little afraid that they're just going to be, like, brutally hard. And it turns out that this one, in general, I feel like is not incredibly difficult, but it does just have a lot of points of frustration, like those bottomless pits and the spikes and things. And if you lose all your lives, you get reset back to the beginning of the level, which is not fun. But whatever. It, for the most part, that hasn't happened too often. You just have to be careful around the bottomless pits.
Sure. So it's not difficult. It's just frustrating.
Yeah. That review was right on.
Gotcha. Yeah, I get that. I can sympathize with that. The game that I'm playing, the other game that I'm playing, my backup to Far Cry 6 is this game Neversong, and it has a little bit of that too, where I'm sort of like, oh, is this deliberately difficult or is it just poorly designed? It has a couple little moments where I'm sort of like, that's a weird choice. You probably could have done that better. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if maybe you're kind of experiencing a similar friction point in Panzer Paladin.
Yeah, I feel like you don't have to die when you fall into a pit. They could put you back on the ledge and take out some of your health or whatever. That it would still be a challenge to get over that pit. It just wouldn't be quite as punishing. But whatever, I didn't make the game. That's maybe they just really wanted those pits in there.
Sure.
Maybe they love them. So whatever. The rest of the game, when I'm not falling into pits, is a lot of fun because you've got this sword. But one of the hooks is that a lot of the enemies also have weapons, and there are a lot of weapons hidden in the environment. So you're just always picking up different sort of like swords and axes and spears and just all these melee weapons. It's actually kind of astounding, just the sheer variety of different weapons that are in this. If you are some sort of like I don't know, medieval weapons freak, you'd probably be really into this because you like pick these up and they all seem to be like based on actual weapons. Like occasionally I'll recognize one like, oh, that's a big like Scottish claymore or whatever, or this one's a rapier, or I just did the Japan level, so there are a bunch of like ninja swords and katana in there. Oh, so that's fun. So there's a lot of cool weapons. It seems like for the most part, there's not a huge difference between a lot of them, other than like some of the weapons have a greater reach than other ones, and as a trade-off, they're a little slower than like using a little tiny dagger or something. But what makes them what further sets them apart is they each have kind of their own special ability, which you can activate by holding down the trigger buttons, which causes you to break the weapon, but then that activates like some kind of buff or a special effect where you could get like a boosted attack power or boosted defense, or one of the ones that is really good is heal.
Oh, wow.
But it's just one of the different ways where these weapons almost turn into like, not quite currency, but just sort of this resource you have to manage because you're
potion bottles, basically, right? You use them up, but they're gone.
A little bit, yeah. Because you're just picking these things up constantly, and also they have they all have a durability meter. So as you're attacking stuff with them, they will just break after a while. So in that sense, it feels a little bit like Breath of the Wild, where at first you're just like, oh no, this is my favorite sword, I don't want it to break. But as soon as you get used to it, just like, oh, I have a whole backpack full of more of these things. So if this one breaks, I'll just pull out another one. So you start figuring out, I want to keep a certain number of these things, like the good weapons that I'm better at using. I'll keep sort of a backup supply of these for when I have to fight the boss or something, or for when it really matters. But these other ones, maybe I want to have, so I have a good mix of buffs to activate. So I have some heals on hand. And then you can do other stuff, like you can throw the weapons at enemies, sort of like you would in Breath of the Wild, and it does, I think it does more damage, but then it just breaks instantly. When you do run into a checkpoint, in order to activate the checkpoint, you have to like stab one of your weapons into it, which seems like a no-brainer. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't do that. Because the alternative is you just get sent back to the beginning of the level, but you have that extra weapon. But the weapons are so disposable. Your
inventory, figuring like what can I live without, right?
Yeah, well, so what usually happens is I'll just be using some weapon until I realize, oh, it's going to break if I hit one more thing with it. So I'll just like put it back in the bag. And the next time I come to a checkpoint, I'll just take out my like broken sword and just put that in there. Be like, all right, I wasn't going to get any more use out of that thing anyway, so you just keep it.
So now it's going to save my life.
Yeah. So it's good.
Yeah, it sounds cool. That sounds really unique.
Yeah, it does have this weird sort of side effect. This is also something that would happen in Breath of the Wild, where whenever you fight a boss or whenever you defeat a boss, they drop like their cool signature weapon. And at that point, I was like, oh, okay, well, this looks like a cool sword, which I am never going to use now because it's too special. And, it would just break after a few hits. So it's just as frustrating as it was in Breath of the Wild, and, just as silly. But it's just a weird sort of like gamer brain thing that I can't get over. Like, oh, this item's too good. I can never use it. I gotta save it for an emergency, which, inevitably will never happen.
Right, yeah. And so like bottles of potion, you just finish the game with hundreds of them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, well, good thing it never came to that. Good thing I got all my shiny weapons left.
In case of emergency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons, or it seems like you should be fine just carrying around like hundreds of backup weapons in your backpack. To the point where I was just like, well, it seems like they should limit you or something, because typically, like, you can have 4 weapons equipped at a time, and you cycle through them using the shoulder buttons, which is kind of nice. But then, as you collect more than 4, they just go into your bag automatically. But at which point, you can just, like, if all 4 of your weapons break, you can just re-equip more instantly from your bag, which seems weird. Because I was like, well, so where's the trade-off? Like, why is there a downside to just having a backpack with 100 extra weapons in it? Because that's entirely possible. And I learned what happens is, as you carry more weapons around, it increases this thing called your spirit burden, which I guess, like, after a certain point, it just starts trying to make the game more difficult. So I think one of the side effects of this is you just take more damage from enemies, or bosses get harder in some way, which I was not really able to perceive. So it doesn't seem that threatening. In fact, one of the most noticeable effects of having too much spirit burden is that the Horseman just shows up again as a mini boss in one of the levels, which, like, when I read about this, they made it sound like it's supposed to be a deterrent to carrying these weapons, but I was like, well, I love fighting the Horseman. Why would I want to fight the Horseman again? So now I'm just completely satisfied having this whole backpack full of swords around, and I don't know. I don't think it's having quite the effect that they had in mind, but on some level, like, I'm fine with it, because who needs that much sort of like stress in a video game?
Yeah, it sounds like they're trying to sort of disincentivize you from carrying around all that stuff, but you have found the bright side of it.
Yeah, I get to fight the Horseman again.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, so, I don't know, maybe it would have more of an impact if I was playing it on a higher difficulty, but I'm fine. Like, I can deal with a retro game. I don't know if I can deal with a retro game cranked up to, like, the highest difficulty level. That seems like, at that point, you're looking for something specific.
Right.
Which, I don't think that's me.
How did this land on your radar? I don't think I've ever heard of this game before.
Oh, it's just been on my list for a while. Like the sort of key art is super cool. It's like this big cartoon robot with a huge sword, of course. So I was like, oh, it's exciting. It's got these cool retro graphics. Looks really good in I guess at one point I watched the trailer and the trailer looked really good. So it was just time to play this.
Cool.
I feel like it's time for a Zelda 2 revival. So I don't know. This has been out for a few years, so I don't know if it has sort of drummed up enough of a demand for more Zelda 2, but I like the obvious sort of nods back to it.
Where are those in the game? It seems like you've pointed more in the direction of the Mega Man type stuff. Where do you feel like it pulls from Zelda, other than it being kind of a 2D side scroller?
Oh, just the sword fighting, and especially whenever you run into an enemy with a sword. Or with a sword and shield, because there were enemies like that in Zelda 2. You would do these little duels where you have to, they would either try and block high or low with their shield, and you'd have to try and attack around it. It was surprisingly technical for an old Nintendo game.
For a 2-button controller.
Yeah. So, yeah. Aside from the bottomless pits, having a pretty good time with it. That's Panzer Paladin. It's out on a bunch of stuff.
Cool. So the other game that I've been playing this week is Neversong. Do you remember a few years back hearing about a game called Once Upon a Coma?
No.
No, okay. Not a great name for a video game.
Okay. Well, it's memorable, at least.
It is noteworthy. It is much more memorable than Neversong. But unfortunately, the developers apparently, I don't know, got some feedback or made a choice and decided they were not going to call their game Once Upon a Coma anymore. It came out as Neversong.
Oh, this is the same game.
It's the same game, yeah.
Okay.
I was not a... Yeah.
Yeah, no, it depends what the game is about and, sort of the mood you're going for.
Yeah.
Not quite as elegant of a title as Neversong.
No. No. Coma is a pretty serious thing, right? Yeah. I don't know what Neversong means. Like, I don't know if that's a thing, if that exists outside of the context of the video game. But Once Upon a Coma, at least, like you said, is memorable and sort of, to a certain degree, sort of describes something way more than the word Neversong does.
Yeah. When I saw Neversong on the list, I immediately thought you were talking about what was the other game? Wandersong you played. So
yes.
So I was like, so just immediately confused with another sort of not especially well-known game, but that's not a great problem.
Had a little musical hook to it. In a similar way that Neversong kind of does too. So the conceit here is that you're a little boy who has had a bit of a disadvantaged life. You're an orphan. You have become friends with a rich girl whose family takes you in and takes good care of you. And then once, while out playing with your little friend, you wander into a mysterious place where your friend is abducted, is stolen by a monster that looks kind of like the Slender Man. Yeah. The game calls him Dr. Smile.
Okay.
And he's got like this very sort of like sinister, like much too big teeth for his head. It's kind of menacing and creepy.
Does he have eyes?
It does. Yeah. He's got like this like kind of smooth skull with like slit eyes and giant teeth. Yeah. And he's super
like
creepy.
Jack Skellington.
A little. I could see that, sure. And because you're so terrified in this moment, you fall into a coma.
Oh.
Which I don't know if that's how comas work, but I don't know. Sounds like maybe not good medicine.
Okay.
So at some point later, you wake up. You find that your friend is still gone, is still taken away, and you go back to your little hometown and check in with all of your little circle of friends and stuff like that. And it turns out that, in fact, every adult in town is now gone along with your friend.
Oh, wait, so you just snap out of a coma?
You just kind of come out of the coma.
Is that how that works?
That I don't know either. Again,
Okay.
maybe not. Somebody should have done a little, Google some medical research before building your game around
like
this thing.
A coma sounds serious. It sounds like whoever it is in this game just fainted for a while.
Yeah. You were in a coma and now you're not anymore.
How long were you in a coma for?
I don't think the game says. You were a little kid before the coma and you're still a little kid afterwards. So not a ton of time.
Okay.
Yeah.
You didn't starve to death while you were in a coma.
Presumably you were cared for. I don't know. But you decide, I have to go find my friend. I have to find out what happened to all the adults in town. And you run around and talk to all the little kids, and they basically fill you in on what they've been doing since all the adults went away. Some of them like it a lot. Some of them are trying to find their parents. From there, it's sort of a 2D platformer with you getting sort of an increasingly complex collection of little perks, little tools that you can use. You get what do you get? You get a baseball bat because your little friend was a baseball player, so you take her bat and use it as your primary weapon. Because in addition to all of the adults and all the kids being taken away by Dr. Smile, there's a bunch of creepy giant mutant spiders all over town.
Just spiders, not just a whole assortment of monsters, but
just
mostly
spiders. Spider type things. They're like an eyeball with legs, or a bigger version with legs and wings that flies and drops on you from above. But they're all sort of variations on a spider in some way.
Okay.
Yeah. And you get an umbrella that allows you to sort of glide and fly. You get you can get a box of nails and modify your baseball bat so that it will cut things then. So then you can cut vines off of trees, and then sort of the fruit will fall off the trees and those somehow turn into bombs. There's a lot of weird stuff in this game that doesn't doesn't make sense.
You're not still in the coma? You're having some kind of fever dream?
I keep waiting. I'm waiting.
Keep waiting.
This whole bizarro world thing is going on here, where everything is just a little off. Everything's a little the kids are goofy and menacing, but sometimes the bullies are still bullying you and calling you snot rag and stuff like that. But there's one girl who's trying to set a world record for jumping jacks or jump rope. So you check in with her early in the game, and she's on a fairly low number, and she's mad at you for interrupting her. But you kind of run by her periodically throughout the course of the game, and the number keeps going up and going up and going up. So she's jump roping through the apocalypse essentially. So this weird stuff happening here. A lot of the adults' houses have padlocks on them that are sealed with gems. Why? I don't know. I'm not sure. The game doesn't really sort of explain. Yeah. You need magnetic gloves to jump on the vines to be able to swing to higher parts of the town. Again, why? Why are they magnetic? I don't understand. So again, just bizarro stuff, and I keep waiting for the shoe to drop, right? That you're still in the coma, and it's just weird shit that your brain made up. That has not been the reveal thus far. I have not seen the final moments of this game yet. I think I'm super close. I'm not sure if it's going to go that way, but I don't want to spoil anything here on the podcast. I don't think I would say either way, but
maybe
it's
just
just
spoil
bizarre.
yourself.
It's just a weird collection of things kind of thrown into what could be kind of a creepy, atmospheric kind of platformer. But it just has this weird sort of tonality to it that just kind of adds up to something very kind of bizarre and off-putting. I don't know. I kind of dig it. Your friend, her name is Ren, was big on music and could play the piano. So you find pieces of sheet music that she's left behind kind of all over the village. It's kind of a collectible. And you can bring them back to her house where her piano is, and you can play on the piano using the buttons on the Switch. You can play different songs. So if you know how to play piano, or you know how to read notes, in the real world, you can play actual music on this thing, which is kind of fun. But you also get sort of A, B, C, D, E, F kind of notes from her sheet music that you can then play. And if you play them correctly, it opens up secret walls in her giant sprawling mansion. and there's cool things hidden behind the walls. That's kind of cool, right? That's kind of a neat thing.
Yeah.
So it has this fun little magical musical hook to it that, again, is one of 50 just bizarro and weird things kind of jammed into this little indie game. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm having fun with it. There are parts of it that feel like more cumbersome than they need to be. Like it's to your point from before, it's not difficult. It's just frustrating. So like there's a weird physics to like the vine swinging and stuff like that. It like, and because you're using magnetic gloves, you're like too sticky to it. So like it doesn't quite like let you go to swing to the next platform or the next thing. So you end up tanking a lot of those jumps. So a lot of the things are like you trying to ascend something tall, a tower or something, and you screw up the jump and you fall all the way back down to the beginning, and you've got to do the whole climb all over again. So there was a point at which in this like 4.5 hour long game where I'm like, I don't think I'm going to see the end of this because I just cannot deal with the frustration here. It does that thing that, and you'll know this as soon as I said it, that I loathe about video games, where you walk into a room, and the magic door seals behind you, and enemies just flank in from everywhere, and you have to fight them unprepared. And it does that sometimes, occasionally, not a lot, but every now and then in Neversong, and it's just spiders crawling out of the walls trying to kill you, dropping on your head. The
spider things just sounds extra horrible.
And you have to smash them with a baseball bat. Yeah. So it's, I don't know. It's it feels like a game sort of made by committee. Like a lot, let's get some of my friends together. Everybody throw out your ideas for what we should put into our creepy kids video game. And, like there were no bad ideas that day. Like everything made it into the game. It just doesn't feel like it has sort of like a consistent tonality or a consistent sort of idea behind it. It's just a lot of stuff put into a video game.
Well, maybe it's because you're still in a coma and your brain's not working correctly.
Correct. Yeah. I don't know. It would be, I guess, unsurprising, but at least satisfying to know that this is deliberate. And,
at the end of it, it's like, oh, that's why.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw that coming, but at least that sort of makes sense. Yeah.
That's kind of hilarious, actually. I mean, it would be better if they were what if it is deliberate and they were just sort of like creating this weird sense of unease throughout the entire game? That would be kind of good, right?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's better than it sort of just being accidentally full of random video game crap.
Yeah. Well, on the other hand, maybe that is what's actually happening.
So, to be determined. Like I said, I'm pretty close. I don't know that I would necessarily spoil it on here for anybody. That's probably not cool either. I don't know. It's going for like $3 on the Switch eShop. It's about $3 worth of fun. I think that's fine. It's pretty brief.
Good endorsement.
Yeah, it's got some like a genuine kind of creepiness factor to it with the whole Slender Man, Dr. Smile thing. It's just okay. Here's another weird thing, and that like you go into the menu, you hit the button to like quit to the main menu because I'm done. I've finished my play session for today. I'm going to go play Animal Crossing or a Monsters Expedition because I'm still hooked on that game. And it says, "Do you really want to quit?" And the two options you have are "Yep." YEP exclamation point or no way, man. Like why? Like I don't like contextually I don't understand why my options are yep and no way, man.
Oh, just like, your character in the game doesn't talk like Bart Simpson.
I kind of wish he did. No, I don't know. Like I get the distinct impression that some writer somewhere was sort of like this is how kids talk. But again, I don't.
But that's the only thing in the game that is written that way.
I think so. Like, I mean, you do run into all these little kids, and they do have generational language and stuff like that are sort of, like I said, little bullies call you snot rag and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just weird. Just a lot of weird choices.
Yeah, I think you're just having a stroke or something. I don't know.
The inevitable sequel, Once Upon a Stroke.
Oh, weird. So at some point on the piano, do you play the Neversong? Is that why it's called that?
Maybe.
Maybe
I just haven't found that one yet. I suspect that's coming. Yeah,
about this game.
I'm losing my voice. I apologize to our listeners for this gravelly thing that's happening right now.
Well, I guess keep me posted.
Yeah.
Don't want to spoil the whole thing on here, but I'm curious to get an explanation for everything that's going on with this.
Yeah. This is called Neversong. I'm playing it on the Switch right now. I believe it's on a bunch of other stuff, but yeah.
Cool.
Proceed with caution.
Man, the spiders thing is a weird decision. Like, whenever a game throws a bunch of spiders at you, it's like, I don't know if it's quite 50-50 if they're going to be just totally disgusting or just fine. Yeah. I feel like for the most part they're fine. But I have to say, Jedi Fallen Order, which I was playing last week, I'm still playing actually, has one of the most disgusting looking spider enemies that I can remember encountering in a game in some time. It's just like this really big, unpleasant alien spider. It's not great. So yeah, the thought of an entire game where all the enemies are like vaguely spider based is not really appealing to me.
Yeah, I could see that.
Kind of weird.
I mean, that is a whole like subgenre of video game now, right? What's that game called? Kill It With Fire? Is that it's
is it
basically you murdering a ton of spiders with flamethrowers and things like that?
Okay, yeah. I think I'm good.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Star Wars, time for some viewer mail.
Yeah.
Get to all those angry Star Wars emails. I'm just kidding. We don't actually have any angry Star Wars emails. Again, not sure if I'm disappointed or not, but what we do have is an email from, I don't know how to pronounce this. Do you want to take a shot at this?
Seki Boboloni.
Seki Boboloni. Okay. Nailed it. Yeah, let's just go with that. Anyway, they sent us an email. Starts with, "Hello, DJ Paul and Randy." I'm just going to go through the whole thing and then we can...
Okay, right off the bat, I have questions, but go ahead.
We have thoughts, yes. Yeah. It continues. "First and foremost, love the show. Started listening right before COVID, and I've been listening periodically since. However, I started with episode 1, and I've been going episode by episode. Currently, I'm on episode 43, so this is almost 10 years ago. The Vita has just been released. Mass Effect 3 has had its DLC mess, and Assassin's Creed 3 happened. Listening to the old episodes really is like a time capsule. I constantly find myself laughing, knowing what is going to happen to different series, consoles, or other video game events in the future. Sometimes all of your banter is spot on, other times it's laughably wrong in hindsight." I don't think we've ever been wrong on this show. But
no,
sorry,
it's certainly not laughably wrong, DJ.
Right, yeah, sorry. So continuing. "The three of you have an excellent back and forth. I often find myself answering the questions you bring up for discussion and really taking a reflection on the video games I am and plan to be playing. I'm excited to keep on listening. I hope you guys have enjoyed all the years creating this podcast. Stay safe out there. Seki Boboloni," or whatever.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I the sad thing is that he will not hear us. I presume they will not hear us read this email for 10 more years. So
I know. So wait, they don't mention if they're like both listening to the current episodes and also the initial episodes. It sounds like they're only starting with the early episodes.
Right, because they started their email with "Hello, Paul, DJ, and Randy."
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Correct.
Who was that third name in there?
Right. For those who only listen to the new shows and have not gone all the way back to episode 1, there was a third host here at some point.
Yeah.
So
not sure. It's somewhere around here, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah. So greetings from 2032.
Right. I was going to say they are aware that COVID is happening, so
right.
It's not like we can go back and like warn them.
Right, exactly. I've come to kill John Connor and to warn you about COVID. Yeah,
Got some bad news for you.
Yeah. So we presume you've arrived by way of flying car. I don't know where else I'm going with this. What other predictions do we have from the future?
I don't know. Tell them about Assassin's Creed 20.
Yeah. Mass Effect, Assassin's Creed. So I have a reference for you, Seki Bubaloni. Episode 500 you'll really dig, because DJ and I went back to those first bunch of episodes. I think we went like the first 15 or 17 or so, and found topics in video games that we talked about at the time and sort of updated our standing on those things for 2021, I think, at the time. So yeah, that is a fun little throwback to that period. But yeah, it'd be super cool that people are still discovering the show. And although I part of me sort of is mortified to hear that people are listening to episode 1 at this point, it's cool that that's still kind of out there for people to appreciate. And it sounds like this person has found an interesting context for appreciating those things. Yeah,
I am fascinated that they just have the commitment to go back through the entire catalog like this. I hope maybe they'll skip ahead to listen to this one so they can hear us reading their viewer mail before, who knows what's going to be going on 10 years from now. But
maybe they have that weird thing like you where they have to consume things in order.
It could be. Although, I don't do this with podcasts, or else I'd just never get anything done. I'd just be hearing about, I'd still be stuck on Assassin's Creed 3 shows.
Right.
I have actually thought about, there are a couple of shows that I've listened to that I've enjoyed and have since stopped producing episodes. And occasionally I think, I should go back and listen to their back catalog episodes that I've missed. But still, it's quite an undertaking. I've not really brought myself to actually do any of that.
Yeah. I wonder sometimes if being 542 episodes into this thing, as we are at this point, is an impediment to us getting new listeners. And this is maybe sort of like an inside baseball kind of conversation, and maybe not necessarily the point of Seki Babaloni's sort of observation here. But yeah, I wonder if it hurts us that people sort of would see Video Game Hangover on their podcasting app of choice and go, oh my God, 540 episodes. I'll never get caught up. I'm not listening to that.
Oh, I don't think so.
No,
I don't even do that. It's like I'll find a new show and have no compulsion whatever to go back to the first episode and listen to them all in order. So
just jump in at the 542nd.
Yeah. I won't even listen to a show if they have fewer than 500 episodes. Like, don't waste my time.
That's a rough policy, TJ. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's not actually true.
Yeah.
Not everybody can be around for 500 episodes.
No, I appreciate our longevity. I like that. Yeah.
Well, so very interesting email. I'm curious about some of the things that they alluded to, like the stuff. I'm mostly interested in the stuff we were correct about and allegedly wrong, laughably wrong about. But maybe you can let us know some of your favorite examples of those in another email 10 years from now, Seki Boboloni. That would be hopefully very amusing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, cool. That's awesome. We don't get a ton of mail from folks, so we love it when we do, and it's nice that somebody's sort of discovering this thing for the first time.
Yeah. I'm glad somebody's listening to those old episodes.
Yeah,
as strange and surreal as that is. Anyway, thanks again for the terrific email, and we'll hopefully hear from you in 10 years from now.
For the rest of our listeners, if you would also like to send us an email, that can be done. I am Randy at VGHangover.com. He is DJ at VGHangover.com. Or you can always do contact at VGHangover.com, and it goes to some mysterious inbox that mostly just DJ looks at.
Yeah, it's basically just goes to me.
Yep. We would love to hear from you if you would like to send us a long form email or something.
Yeah. How else can they get in touch with us?
Yeah, you should follow us on Twitter. You could do that, twitter.com/VGHangover. You can always get show notes and links and tell us what you thought about the episode at VGHangover.com. You could drop into our Discord, interact with us one-on-one, talk about video games and movies and music and all kinds of other fun stuff that pops up on our radar. You can get a link and an invite to that at VGHangover.com as well. What else? It would also help us immensely if you would subscribe, rate, and review us on your podcasting app of choice, be it Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Amazon Music, or other. And help us out. Tell your friends about the show. That's probably the easiest way to help spread the word about this thing that we do here.
Yeah. Really helps us get the word out. Gain new listeners. That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking about what was I playing 10 years ago? Probably Assassin's Creed 3. That was not a pleasant memory.
I don't think I played that one. That must have been you or Paul.
You didn't play? You must have played that one. That was the Colonial America one.
Yeah, I definitely didn't play that one.
What? All right.
Nope.
Well, anyway, it's enough about Assassin's Creed 3. We'd like to encourage everyone. Whoops. We'd like getting ahead of myself. We'd like to give thanks again to Protodome this week for our intro and outro music. Now we would like to encourage everyone to go to protodome.bandcamp.com and buy all the albums you see there. Help Protodome out. That would be terrific.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be back next week. Until then, this is Randy Dickinson.
This is DJ Ross.
Thanks so much for listening to Video Game Hangover. Goodbye.
Good night.
See ya.